So this morning, my Bible was sitting like this, and I opened it straight up, and I knew I was going to talk about fasting today, but this is what, like my eyes went straight to chapter 58 of Isaiah, verse 5, and God's talking about fasting to the Israelites. And he said, is it a fast like this, verse 6. Is this not the fast which I choose, to loosen the bonds of wickedness, to undo the bands of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free and break every yoke? And verse 8 says, then your light will break out like the dawn, and your recovery will speedily spring forth. And your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Call on the Lord, and he will answer. You will cry, and he will say, here I am. If you remove the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking of wickedness. So I wanted to share that with you because few things can really give you breakthrough and move mountains like the power of fasting and praying. And today we're going to talk about fasting, but we know for thousands and thousands of years, different religious groups, all kinds of them, have used prayer and fasting together to really create breakthrough. So today I want to show you the research on how fasting can give you the breakthrough in your health that you need. And then the amazing thing is, so many things can become clear to you through this period. So it's not... fun little comic relief here. I said you're the good kind of fat, but we have so much information now about keto and eat more good fats and intermittent fasting and fasting. I believe 2019 fasting was one of the #1 Googled terms. Like, everyone wants to know more information about it. So let's dive right into those research studies.
I'm not sure I understand.
That's fine. So Live It to Lead It is a seminar, and we're part of a group called Health Centers of the Future. And they title our seminars Live It to Lead It because they teach us how to live it, and we literally do live it. We fast at all of our seminars, but you have to live it to lead it. So one of the things that Dr. Pompa has done, and a lot of our other doctors in our Platinum program are launching out, is a structured fasting program for people. Because how many of you heard the word fasting and you were like, no, that's not for me? And even when your pastor talks about it at church, you're like, oh man, thank God we weren't born thousands of years ago, or we'd be starving this week. But one thing that we know is it creates a production of stem cells in our body. And so this program is called the Stemnomic Solution. You've probably never heard of that because it is a made-up word, but this is what we're going to be referring to as this program to train your body how to fast. Because at the end of this presentation, you're going to be like, wow, there's so many amazing things with fasting. And whether you feel like fasting or not, how cool would it be to go through with a group of people, encourage one another, keep each other accountable, but then when you are feeling terrible or have a caffeine headache or whatever the case, you can really understand what's going on just the mechanisms and on a physiological level, and you can really push through that. So stem cells, these are cells with the potential to develop into many types of cells in the body. And they're different than every other cell in the body because they can divide and renew themselves over a long time. They're not specialized, so that's how they divide into anything. Like if we take it right back to every one of us when we were conceived, it was a sperm and an egg, 2 cells. And we became this amazing body of 72 trillion cells, give or take a trillion. And we know that the intelligence that God built into those cells, it is still within us. That healing capacity, that healing power is still in our body right now. So how many of you would like more stem cells? I mean, regeneration, healing, everything. So the Stemnomic Solution, this is the use of therapeutic strategies that enhance the production and utilization of stem cells. And so the Stemnomic diet is that strategy. And again, it's a 7-week program, but let's just dive into fasting. Is such an important component to getting your health back. We honestly see true miracles all the time. Tumors that are going from, in 14 days, a tumor went from a softball size to a golf ball size just from doing a water fast. But we know that there are ancient healing strategies like diet, variation, and fasting. And then incorporating those with the true cellular detox, it just is amazing. People's autoimmune conditions are reversing, their tumors are shrinking. The list goes on and on. So we're going to spend a couple minutes on this slide because all of these 7 reasons to fast, there's a story for each one of them. So, number 1 reason to fast, autophagy. Everybody say autophagy. We know that this is the body's natural process of old cells dying and then getting replaced with new cells. So we want the sick cells to be gone. So fasting promotes autophagy. Fasting promotes stem cell surge, so replaces those cells used for energy and repair during autophagy. Number 3 reason to fast, elevated ketones. So you probably have heard of the ketogenic diet. The intention for that is to get your body to burn ketones rather than sugar. So every cell in your body has the potential to burn one or the other. Now sugar, as it's burning, there's toxins, there's inflammation, there's all kinds of things going on, but when we're burning ketones, we know that it's better for our cells, it's better for our brains. They're doing phenomenal research. Dr. Dominic D'Agostino is down in Florida doing amazing research with Navy SEALs, and check that out yourself, my friends. So this is really important. Energy diversion, guess what? If you're fasting, all of the energy that is normally going to digestion all day long, because the average American eats anywhere between 17 to 20 times a day. And if you're like, holy smokes, this next week, count how many times you eat. Each time you eat a handful of nuts, or you eat a granola bar, or you're drinking a green tea with honey, or any other food, it counts. So your body can then use the blood supply and all the other energy for healing in your body. Number 5, hormone optimization. So, hey Nigel, could you please bring me my notepad and maybe like 2 markers? I'm gonna draw you a picture and you're gonna love it. It's really amazing because hormone optimization, we can just breeze over that, and people are always like, no, I don't really have hormone problems. Well, did you know that insulin is a hormone? It's not just testosterone, progesterone. We know that we have thyroid hormones, right? And leptin is really important for your body to, we have to respond to leptin to be able to burn fat. So hormone optimization, we know with fasting we get a massive rise in growth hormone. I'm going to show you those studies here in just a few minutes. And then it also increases in cell sensitivity. Yeah, perfect. Okay, Nigel's going to be, actually, can you just like hold it right here for me?
Yes.
Okay, hold it right there. Okay, perfect. Okay, hold that. I'm going to show you what we're talking about, cells, hormone sensitivity, and hormone optimization. So, here's a cell, okay? And we know that we've got DNA, we've got little mitochondria, we have amazing things happening in the cell. And we have to get messages in the cell, and we have to get toxins out of the cell. So we have this lipid membrane right here that's so important for that communication. We also have receptors, right? So thinking about some of those hormones we just talked about, we know insulin, that's a big one. We've got T3, T4 are thyroid hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, leptin, so we can burn that fat. There's so many hormones in our body. They have to bind to a receptor to get their message and the information in the cell so that this cell can do what it needs to do for health and healing in your body. Well, what's happening is we are encountering toxins every day at levels that we've never seen before. It's in your air, your water, your food, it's in all the products we put on our body. I mean, we do hours and hours of toxin training, but what's happening is those toxins are creating inflammation of this membrane. So when the membrane's inflamed, it blocks the receptors. It blocks the receptors. So you don't feel well, your hair's falling out, or you're losing your appetite or your sex drive, or you're constantly constipated, or your hormones are just all over the place. You go and you get blood work. That's usually our standard of care. And they're like, no, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. Everything looks good. And you're like, but wait a minute, I still don't feel well. Here's why. All the hormones are out here, but this membrane is so swollen that they can't bind to the receptors. So when we talk about fasting, optimizing your hormones and increasing your sensitivity, that's because fasting is bringing down the inflammation, allowing those receptors to be visible to the hormones, and we get increased sensitivity. So let's just real quickly talk about type 2 diabetes. We know the doctors are now just referring to that condition as insulin resistance. Like, it's not type 2 diabetes, it's a condition of insulin resistance because they become so inflamed that it doesn't matter how much insulin, they just have to keep giving him more. 3 months later, they have to increase their insulin and keep increasing. So again, that hormone optimization is huge. The other thing, on a short note, have you ever tried to lose weight and maybe you did an amazing job, you lost weight, whether you've fasted or incorporated some other diet, maybe you did the paleo or the active or whatever, and then a couple months later you were right back up to that weight, and then you lost another 20 pounds, and then later you gained 15 back. Our bodies do have a set point. Well, that set point is regulated by your hormones. So it's regulated by insulin and leptin. And so again, when we become more sensitive to those, we can lose weight and literally never gain it back because we've changed our hormonal set point. It's so huge. So thank you very much. Yay, Nigel. So we'll kind of just store that beautiful picture in the back of your memory because we'll kind of touch back on that a couple times. But another reason to fast, it resets your DNA. This is so powerful, my friends, because everybody just think about the laundry list of conditions, health conditions in your family right now. I don't know about you, but my list is pretty long. There are people with autoimmune. I lost 2 grandmothers to cancer. I lost 2 grandfathers to heart disease. We've got kidney disease. My uncles have like traded kidneys, and thank God they're still alive, but half of my uncles are living on 1 kidney. Like, there's so much going on. And we know that we inherit our DNA, but they're doing amazing studies at Duke University, and they expose these mice to a toxin that we encounter every day in our air and our water. And the mice, this agouti gene turned on, and so when that happened, the mice gained weight, they developed cardiovascular disease and thyroid conditions. And so what happened then, they wanted to redo it, so they did it with twin mice, right? And one group, everybody ate the same things, exercising the same, exposed one group to the toxin. Again, it turned on that gene, and those mice, morbidly obese, thyroid conditions, and heart disease. Then they had the mice reproduce. We know, so the healthy group, the healthy mice had healthy babies. The sick mice had sick babies, go figure. So a process of detoxification and remethylation and some different resources that we incorporate into our detox programs, they were able to reverse those conditions in those mice. So their thyroid numbers became normal, they lost weight, their cardiovascular systems were all better, and their markers were better. And then they had those mice reproduce again, and the ones who had been sick healed their bodies, they then had healthy babies. So what we know is that only 3% of diseases are genetic. 97%, all those other diseases, they're environmentally induced. It's not about whether you have the obesity gene, it's whether that code is turned on or off. So fasting, again, can reset your DNA. It can turn off cancer markers. It can turn off inflammation markers. It's so powerful. And it can reset your microbiome. We know stresses, it starves the bacteria, and it resets. We know our gut is for everything. Our immune system, we've heard about leaky gut, and there's just been a lot of information and a lot of attention in the media looking at your microbiome and how instrumental that is for your health and healing in your body. And fasting, again, can help reset that. So this is, everybody again, autophagy. That's what's going on in your body when you're fasting. So if you've ever done a fast and you felt really crappy, it's probably because old cells are dying off, and those old cells are full of toxins, and those toxins are getting released. That's why it's also really important to get good binders and just have good techniques while you are fasting. We know that this doctor in 2016, he won a Nobel Prize proving that fasting is good for your health. And we know that when autophagy is happening, not just old cells, but cellular rubbish and even pathogenic bacteria are consumed and eliminated from our body. And T cells are really important with our immune system. And this doctor proved that fasting purged and rebuilt the immune cell population with the naive T cells. That is so powerful because, even patients with HIV and cancer and other just like huge immune depressing conditions, they're showing that fasting is improving those. So what drives autophagy? We know that fasting, especially after four days, drives autophagy, so that's why 5 is the goal. You can also do just restricted calories, so the partial fast or the fasting mimicking diet. This is where you would eat maybe 500 to 800 calories every day for a period of time. Or low carb or ketosis or the ketogenic diet, or even low protein is really good, like doing under 20 grams a day is really good for feast and famine cycles. So one thing that is so important with like the feast and the famine cycles, we know when we look at our ancestors where there was no cancer, there was no allergies, there was no heart disease, that those things didn't even exist. And they constantly cycled their food with the seasons, right? They ate in the summer and the spring and the summer, it was just leafy greens and berries and vegetables, just amazing things like that. And then as they went to the winter, it was more like dried fruits and nuts, seeds, or dried meats, things like that. But here in America, we can get anything we want, anytime we want, right? And it's like we're feasting all the time. So if you have done maybe the ketogenic diet, maybe it's worked for you or it hasn't worked for you, cycling is going to be the key. So all the research and benefits, of course, are true, and it's not just like your body's different. You just have to incorporate these strategies so that your body can optimally use those ketones. Mitochondria are your body's little energy factories, okay? So they're the energy factories, and we know that fasting, the bad or the weak mitochondria are actually dying off, okay? And so it's fun too, because we also talk about fasting. It's like a workout for your mitochondria. It's mitochondrial fitness. Only the healthy ones survive. And this occurs in 5-day fast to some degree, but even 15 to 24-hour intermittent fasts. Okay, so daily intermittent fasting. Hopefully you guys have heard of intermittent fasting, but it's not about eating less, it's about eating less often, so we're eating within a window. The benefits of this are almost anyone can do it. I mean, you're just shifting the window when you're eating. Study shows some autophagy happens within 15 to 24 hours of a fast, which is really great. So you think about, let's say you finished eating dinner or you just had nothing else after 8 p.m. So you count from there all the way through the night into the day, and then maybe you don't eat again until 2, 4, 6. So that's what we're talking about, and how you calculate those hours. So do we get a drop in all of our inflammation markers? Again, hormone optimization happens with intermittent fasting, increases the sensitivity, especially over 15 hours. And studies show that growth hormone rise is still as high as 2,000%. So let me show you this, if you can see this. This was the control, and these were the levels of growth hormone. This was, so day 1 there was a spike, and then day 5. So you can just see how much day 5, it is more than doubled with the growth hormone. And it produces it preserves your muscle mass because of the hormone optimization. So many, we've been taught to eat 5 to 6 meals a day, which I'll show you a study on that too. But then they say, oh man, if you're starving or if you're fasting, it's going to go eat your muscle first. Well, it's not, because of this shift in hormones. This is how bodybuilders are using intermittent fasting and ketosis to literally get shredded and fit. Even 20 hours of water fasting was enough to increase insulin sensitivity. So again, anyone that has type 2 diabetes, and then well, even type 1 diabetes, I mean, I say that one with caution, but it just fasting 20 hours increased that insulin sensitivity. Hormone optimization. Okay, so a short-term fast, this study is just showing how the luteinizing hormone was increased 67% in non-obese males, and then a 26% in obese males. 180% increase in testosterone in the non-obese group. Like, this was huge. So the fasting is increasing the testosterone, and holy smokes, you can't sit down and watch TV ever anymore without seeing a commercial about some form of ED, right? And we know that the testosterone, even women, when our testosterone levels go down, you don't feel like doing anything, you're fatigued, you can't get off the couch. So that's really hard. And fasting improves it. So intermittent fasting and exercise, this is really important because people, like, as you start incorporating the intermittent fasting in your lifestyle, you still need to exercise. Now, some people can exercise intensely and amazing, like Dr. Pompa talked about how he went on his, I don't know, it was like a 52-mile bike ride, and he didn't have any of those gels or anything. You know, everybody's pounding the gels and the drinks and electrolytes and things like that. But when you're fat adapted and your body's able to use ketones, you can exercise and do it intensely. So check out the Hodge twins. You might want to clear the kids out of the room. I always do a disclaimer, like they drop a lot of bad words, but they're world-class bodybuilders, and they're doing all intermittent fasting. Okay. So she was headed down the same path that her mother was. She lost her to breast cancer, and she just knew that her hormones were out of whack, as we kind of say, and she was really struggling incorporating the fasting. Now, they were doing some amazing things for body support, doing properly detoxing things, and as she incorporated the fasting, she started building muscle like she never had before. She said she had never been cut like that. So it was just really amazing. And again, you know, like at the beginning, we talked about how fasting and prayer together just creates amazing breakthrough. And what's really important are maybe multiple fasts, right? Like maybe you do one fast and it's a huge struggle. The next one may be easier, and maybe it takes you 4 or 5 or 6 to really optimize those hormones to where you're feeling better. The key to living longer and healthy, all the studies are numerous and clear. It's eat less and live longer. But we eat less by eating less often. That is super important. So no ancient culture, they never ate less by pushing food away. No, I mean, it cycled seasonally, and we just have to discipline ourselves really to incorporate those things into a weekly routine. So this is another study. Mice who ate once a day lived 40% longer than the ones that had access to food around the clock. The study showed that when they ate one meal and had the longest fasting period, they had better outcomes for common age-related liver disease and metabolic disorders. Okay, so this is important. Okay, so this new study. Okay, so this new study, well, don't tell your patients, and I'm not really telling you, right? But what was really surprising is health benefits were seen for those that were incorporating the intermittent fasting, regardless of what they were eating. Or even how many calories they consumed. It literally was all about having that fasting window and then putting all your calories in that window. Okay, why? Well, when we're continuously eating or snacking periodically throughout the day, your metabolism, it doesn't have time to rest or readjust. Your body fixes and removes the garbage during that time. So if you eat more garbage, you might need a longer fasting period. This lady lived 117 years, and she said she didn't have any teeth, so she just ate 2 eggs a day and a cookie sometimes. Just ate once a day, 117 years old. So this is, well, we have got several stories just backing with the evidence about how 5 to 6 meals a day is not productive for you. It's every time you eat, your body is dumping insulin. And so that is another reason that we're becoming resistant to it. So more frequent snacking and eating speeds aging, increases inflammation, and doesn't work for long-term weight loss. So 6 meals a day, these patients had the worst outcomes. So here's the how. It really is simple. You can just skip breakfast. And like my mother-in-law, for the longest time, she was like, breakfast is so important, breakfast is so important. Like, how many of you have just been, it's been pounded in your brain, like that's the most important meal of the day. Now what you can do is you can just have breakfast at noon or 1. So that's what I would just tell her. No, we're definitely having breakfast. We're just not having it until noon or 1 or 2, whatever your optimal eating window is. So for muscular gains, you want to be eating within a 6 to 9 hour window. So if you don't get home and you can't finish eating till 8, then you don't start eating till 2, maybe. We do need at least one big meal to remind the body that it's not starving. So if you're eating in a 6-hour window, you don't have to think about getting 3 meals in a 6-hour window. Just pack all the calories in that 6 hours. Maybe you're just eating the whole 6 hours. I don't know about you, but whenever I first heard about intermittent fasting, my first thought was, oh man, I can't wait till 1 o'clock to have coffee. You can have coffee, and it's really important that you test. We use, and we will put in the comments a link to the Keto Mojo, where I believe you can get 10% off with this link. So the Keto Mojo, though, is a blood test. That is the most accurate way to see what your ketones are. So we test our glucose and our ketones first thing in the morning, and then you have your coffee with whatever good fats that you have. Like maybe you put butter or ghee or heavy cream, and you want organic on all of those things for sure. And then 30 minutes later, you test again. And if your glucose goes down and your ketones go up after the coffee, then that is the coffee for you, okay? Now, let's say your glucose goes up and your ketones go down, then that means that's not working for you. So some people can have lots of fats in their coffee and their glucose goes down, their ketones goes up. That's awesome, it's great. And some people, they can't have fats in their coffee. And I'm sure it will change after, the more fasting that you do, the more that the more that your body adapts. But you have to test. People are always like, well, can I put this in my coffee? Can I do this? Can I eat this? Like, you just have to test. And when we keep talking about your optimal eating window, again, you have to test. You have to know what your glucose and your ketones are to structure that. So there's several different types of block fasting, and maybe you're deciding how you want to start, but water only, people have been using this for thousands of years, right? Juice fasts, it's an amazing way to get a ton of nutrients in your body. So my opinion, it was harder for me to do a juice fast than it was to do a water fast, because every time I had the juice, your body's releasing insulin. I just was starving all the time, even though I knew I was getting great nutrients. So that did a great job giving my gut a break. But it was really hard for me, and that wasn't something that was healing my insulin receptors and things like that. Whey water, this is a protein water derived from dairy. It is kind of harder to find, but bone broth. But some people do bone broth fasts, and this is really productive. It's collagen, healing of the gut. People do partial fast or fasting mimicking diet. Again, it's like 500 to 800 calories a day, maybe within just a much smaller window. And so what if you did caloric restriction 5 days a month? Low protein, low carb, but high fat, 25 days of eating anything they wanted, and beta cells in their pancreas were regenerated. So this is really important, because we know that people that have type 1 diabetes, you're either born with it or it's developed, or sometimes we have a virus that literally attacks the beta cells so they can't produce insulin, and that's why they have to take insulin. This study found that literally all they did, they fasted 5 days out of the month, and then the other 25 days ate whatever they wanted, and beta cells in their pancreas were regenerated. I mean, it's phenomenal what your body can do. Again, we go back to the stem cells, right? Because the fasting is producing those stem cells. Well, they all went to these people's pancreas and healed it. It was just so powerful. Okay, multiple extended block fast for breakthrough. So anybody who struggles to control your insulin, your glucose, you have type 2 diabetes, or you can't lose weight, and maybe you're doing every diet and you're working out and you just can't, then this is for you. Any hormone dysregulation. So often I take care of ladies and they're like, they're on a birth control for the reason of regulating their cycles. And it just feels like, we take the birth control, my cycles are regular. But what would happen if you didn't take the birth control? They're not regular. So your hormones are something that you do need to support and you do need to pay attention to. Or even, so many people have to get their organs out for one reason or another. Or PCOS, or anyone that's not able to conceive. All of these are your hormones are dysregulated, right? And so fasting could be a huge component for you. That was another thing that, after I did my first block fast, the very next cycle was the smoothest, least painful cycle I've had since I was 19, which is a while ago. Anybody with low cellular energy, anybody with chronic fatigue, anybody with autoimmune conditions, any autoimmune conditions, psoriasis, Hashimoto's, scleroderma, any of these things. Cancer, this is so important. Like I mentioned, the person that had the softball-sized tumor, in 14 days of water fasting, it was down to a golf ball. We know that cancer cells have so many sugar receptors, exponentially more than a regular cell. So if you're dumping sugar in your body, guess which cell is the one with the most receptors is going to get that glucose, and that's what's growing. So my friends, if you have cancer, if you've had cancer, or anyone you know, encourage them to incorporate some fasting into their lifestyle. And of course, fixing the gut and resetting our microbiome is so, so important. I don't know if you've heard of Oscar the dog, but he was a dog. They were doing studies and they were fasting dogs, and they monitored their internal statistics, and when they started getting to a point where they were going to die or a primordial rise, then they would stop fasting the dog and they would recuperate them. But this dog kept getting out and he kept getting into food. So he would eat a bunch of food and then they would fast him again, and then he would eat a bunch of food and then they would fast him again. Eat a bunch of food. It was 117 days. They couldn't get this dog to die, basically. They couldn't kill the dog. So they just stopped fasting him. But they called him Oscar, the unstoppable dog. He really did become unstoppable, and it was the cycling, right? So if we're doing fasting, we are incorporating feasting days, carb loading days, protein loading days. So it's so powerful. The multiple fasts, again, is really what is key. Everybody wants to know, how long can someone fast? This study, this gentleman weighed 456 pounds. He water fasted for 382 days. That's more than a year, my friends. More than a year. This gentleman he was monitored by his physicians, and because they had to adjust his medications on a regular basis, because he was just one after another, he didn't need them anymore because his body was healing. Imagine the stem cells if you fasted for a year. He lost 276 pounds, but here's the really important part: he never gained it back. All his nutrition markers are normal. His electrolytes, they normalized without supplementation. His depression lifted. Neurotransmitters and hormones all became normal. So powerful. And sometimes you're like, yeah, that was one guy and they did a very special study on him. But one of my first seminars with Health Centers of the Future, this gentleman stood up and he's like, yeah, I've been fasting 128 days. And we're all like, what? So Dr. Pombo was asking him questions. He's like, well, are you hungry? He's like, yeah, I'm starting to get hungry. He's literally said he hadn't been hungry for almost the last 100 days. But that's another key when you're fasting, is to listen to your body, right? Sometimes we know hunger is just going to be a part of it. We just have to be okay with being hungry. But after we really push through a lot of the fluctuations that are happening, we know that we can listen to our body, and we'll know when the right time to break a fast is. So when we talked about autophagy in the beginning, that really is one of the number one goals, there's a way that you can calculate that. So you've got to get your keto mojo, you got to test your glucose and your ketones. When you test your glucose, you divide it by 18, And then you want your ketones and your glucose to be about a 1-to-1 ratio, okay? When you're in that state, you're in max autophagy. So I actually hit this day 4 of my fast, and man, I was so excited. I almost wanted to fast for another 5 days. Like it was just really empowering just to know that your body is working, your body is healing. And it helps shift your mentality when you have these tools to tell you what's going on inside. So fear is something that, it can literally hold you back from anything. So I want to encourage you, when you are thinking about fasting or how to start, how to incorporate this into your lifestyle, just take fear out of it. I always think fear cannot, we can't make emotional decisions, right? We have to just practically, this is good for me, and maybe just pray away that fear. If you're pregnant, you should not fast. But however, I was thinking about how sick I was during my pregnancy for several months, and my body just innately fasted, but that tiny human just kept growing. So nursing also, you shouldn't fast unless that's what your body is telling you to do. Now, intermittent fasting is totally a different thing. If you're getting the nutrients and your body is already efficient at burning ketones, you're going to be great at intermittent fasting and nursing, and that's fine too. Maybe you're going through a fasting program at your church, or maybe your kids want to be a part of it, or they're asking questions. I want to encourage you to go to Cellular Healing TV, and Dr. Pompa's son, Isaac, I believe he was 12, when he did, I think he did almost an 11-day fast just on his own. That's the really important part is, teaching your kids what's going on, and then maybe letting them make their own decision and teaching them how to listen to their bodies. But fasting in other countries for children is a great thing. I know in America we're like, oh my gosh, the kid hasn't eaten in 2 or 3 hours. If the French fries are the only thing they're going to eat, that's fine. Just feed them something. But we know that fasting, they're just tiny humans, right? Everything works the same way. Another person, if you're thinking about fasting and you've had a history of eating disorders, I would encourage you just to talk to someone, because we do need a healthy relationship with food to understand that food is fueling us, and we can't just fast forever, right? We need structure, we need strategies. Again, just searching for some help if you don't have a healthy relationship with food. You could have these symptoms during a block fast. So you could be weak, low energy, fatigue, increase in pain, headaches, nausea, sleep, cold, brain fog, coated tongue. Sign me up, right? No. These are some symptoms that some people experience, not everyone does. But you also can be empowered, if, day 2 or 3, you're experiencing all these, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to eat. Let me just tell you, this is a natural thing, and eating is not going to fix these things. That was one thing. One time I broke fast because my headache, I just had this terrible pounding headache. Dr. Dan's adjusting me, and I got a massage, we're doing all these different things, and I was like, fine, I'm just gonna eat. Well, guess what? It didn't fix the headache, because there was a process that was already initiated and going on in the body. So another reason you might not feel well, your electrolytes might be off. So a little sea salt in your water sometimes works wonders. We use Fast Tonic. It's activated hydrogen. You drop it in your water, and you can pick a bottle up at the office or order it online too. But that is little tiny hydrogens. They're like little mechanics that are going through your body, and they're fixing the damaged cells. The other thing is when those old cells are dying and they have toxins in them, those toxins are released. So we use detox, which is an amazing product, a breakthrough in the research, able to bind things, and then we use bind also that helps bind it in the gut and really eliminate those things. This just takes fasting to a whole new level. You may not be fully fat adapted, so maybe you're checking your glucose and your ketones are low. You might need multiple block fasts. And so the cool thing is you can know that each time you fast, you'll become more efficient, and it will be easier and easier. Or maybe you're neurotoxic, and maybe you do need a detox. We use the True Cellular Detox products here. Sometimes people can get through that in 3 to 9 months, and some people need more support and more coaching. But this is the structured program that we have for you. We'd love for you to get on board. We're just launching another program right now, but we also have all the resources anytime you want to start this fast. So it's 7 weeks, but you're not actually doing a fast until week 6, okay? The first week you're getting off the blood sugar roller coaster. Week 2, let the magic begin. Week 3, discover your personalized eating window because we're testing glucose and ketones. Week 4, tap into deep subcutaneous fat stores. So whenever everybody's always worried about the belly fat, and maybe you've heard of like wheat belly, when we have visceral fat, it becomes a hormonal factory and disrupts all other hormones in our body. So when we start tapping into that, things really start changing for us. Week 5, we become a stronger and more efficient fat burner. That week we do a 24-hour fast. And then week 6 is the 5-day water fast. Most important, week 7, how to break your fast. And how to continue maximizing those results, because when you get into the state of max autophagy in a 5-day water fast, if you continue intermittent fasting and cycling fasting and feasting into your lifestyle, you can continue with those max autophagy, like that process going on in your body for maybe even up to 2 months. It really is amazing. So there's just more details about that, but thank you very much for joining us. I know that you learned something about fasting and how it can benefit you. So if this is something that we can help you with, coach you through, keep you accountable, and we'd love to be a part of that journey for you. So thanks.